Hello students, welcome back. As you all know, we were dealing with the first chapter. This is the second part of this video. Okay, we have already learned the block diagram of the computer and also the motherboard, its characteristics and its types. Now in this video, we will be mainly concentrating on the general structure of the motherboard and the components of the motherboard.
So dear students, this is the general schematic diagram of the motherboard, or you can say the structure of motherboard. Okay, so your motherboard mainly contains two bridges. Okay, the north bridge and the south bridge. You can see the arrow mark, the north bridge and the south bridge. Okay, means the chips are connected in these two chipsets mainly. Okay, the north bridge is, see, as I go on explaining, you please note down some points just to remember. Okay, so north bridge is mainly responsible for the high speed communication devices. Okay, the devices that needs high speed execution are all connected to the north bridge. For example, the highest speed of execution is to the CPU, isn't it? So CPU is mainly connected to north bridge. Your core processor, it may be of Intel or any other core processor, the microprocessor will be connected to the north bridge. That means the processor socket is situated in north bridge. Okay, and it is always associated with the clock generator that gives the pulses to the CPU. Okay, now this north bridge is also connected through the memory bus to the memory slots. Okay, memory slots are there. You will in the next heading, that is when you are listening to the components of the motherboard, you can actually see what is slot, what are these buses. Okay, you'll be able to see all those. You just need to write the points now. Okay, so memory slots like RAM slot and your another secondary storage devices slots, so those all devices will be connected to the north bridge. Okay, using the memory buses. Okay, and the high speed graphics card, as you can see here, high speed graphics card. Okay, so this graphic bus means graphics card has to be worked on the high speed, isn't it? It needs the communication to happen at a faster rate. So the graphics card slot is connected always to the north bridge. And also please remember the point that north bridge is also called as host bridge. Okay, and now it works always along with this south bridge. Okay, it is mainly used to control the input output devices, IO bridge also it is called as. So as you can see, the PCI slots are there, peripheral component interface. In the next heading you will be studying all these in detail. Okay, and graphics card controller is there. Okay, mainly it is having the IO devices. Okay, means input output devices. See, using serial port, parallel port. Okay, means serial port you are connecting your mouse, modem. Parallel port you are connecting the printers, scanners. Okay, then floppy disk drive, and keyboard mouse will be having the separate openings also. So this south bridge mainly contains the devices that can be having slow execution rate. Okay, fast execution rate devices are always connected to the north bridge. Compared to that, slower execution devices are connected to the south bridge. Okay, so this is the general structure of the motherboard. Sometimes asked for 5 marks, you just need to draw this diagram perfectly and write about the north bridge and the south bridge in a paragraph each. Okay, and now that contains the general structure of the motherboard. Okay, I hope this is clear.
Now, coming to the components of the motherboard. Okay, there are several components of the motherboard. The key components we will be seeing here. The first one is processor, isn't it? This is the main component. Nowadays microprocessor is also used, but the processor is nothing but the CPU, central processing unit, correct? So see, just I have written some key points which you have to explain when you are detailing this one. Okay, like you have to write about ALU, CU, registers, isn't it? Means in processor you will be having two units importantly, the ALU and the CU. ALU is the arithmetic and logic unit that performs all the arithmetic operations like subtraction, addition, multiplication, division, etc. and the logical operations like AND, OR, NOT, XOR, etc. Correct? So you have to explain about ALU. Then you have to explain about CU, control unit. You have already seen this in the block diagram, isn't it? That controls the transfer or the flow of instructions, the control unit. Okay, and the processor has got the inbuilt registers. Okay, see, RAM and ROM are the memory devices. They are also inserted in the computer. Okay, but the processor itself will have small amount of memory which is in the form of registers. Okay, these are the inbuilt memory units in the processor. These are called registers. Okay, and you have to mention about the clock speed. The processor has got a clock speed. What do you mean by clock speed? How many instructions the processor can execute in 1 second? That is the clock speed. Okay, normally your clock speed will be expressed in terms of gigahertz or megahertz. Okay, you have to remember that. You have to mention this here. Okay, so the clock speed is the number of instructions executed by the processor in 1 second. Okay, and it is normally expressed in gigahertz and megahertz. Okay, so when you are writing about the components of the motherboard, the first one is processor. In that, these are the key points you have to remember. Okay, please remember this. We are seeing only the highlights of the first chapter, isn't it? So what all are important points to be written in the exam that we are dealing here. Okay, so fine, this is all about the first component, that is processor. Coming to the second component, BIOS, BIOS, basic input output system. Okay, you need to write the full form first. Basic input output system. Okay, actually it starts when the computer is switched on. Okay, when the computer is switched on, this BIOS starts, and it has got the feature called as post. Okay, power on self test. Power on self test. Okay, means as soon as you switch on the computer, it will load all the devices, the hardware devices, and checks for its proper functioning. Okay, you have to remember this. As soon as you switch on the computer, it has to load all the device drivers, isn't it? And it has to see whether all the hardware devices that you have connected to the computer, maybe keyboard or mouse or printer, everything has to be checked whether they are functioning properly or not. Now that is done by the BIOS. Okay, and it also has the bootstrap loader. What is bootstrap loader? Bootstrap loader means it loads the OS into the processor. Okay, means OS will not be working when the computer is switched off. Am I right? As soon as the computer is switched on, the BIOS uses the bootstrap loader to load the OS into the processor, and it starts functioning. Okay, that is the main function of BIOS that you have to remember. Now coming to the third component, that is CMOS. What is CMOS? Complementary metal oxide semiconductor. Okay, here full forms are very important. Please note it down. Okay, complementary metal oxide semiconductor. Okay, now this is very important to show you the date and time parameters in the computer. Okay, this is very important in showing the date and time parameters. Now see here, whenever the computer is switched off, okay, the time will be something, but when it is switched on again, will the time continue from where it had stopped? No, it will be the normal timing. Okay, it will be the normal timing. Means even when the computer is switched off, this CMOS has to be working, isn't it? This CMOS has to be working. Means it has to be updating the date and time again and again. Now if this is December, you are switching on your computer directly in January, it should not show the December again. It should show the January itself. That means even when the computer is switched off, some device is working, okay, and it is updating the date and time every second. Now that is done by CMOS. But how does it get the energy then? How does it get the power? Because the computer is switched off. Okay, so your CMOS always uses a lithium ion battery. Okay, it will be powered on using this lithium ion battery, and hence it will be on itself. Whenever your computer is switched on, it will show you the correct date and time parameter. This is all about CMOS. Okay, so this CMOS and BIOS both will be switched on using the lithium ion battery when the computer is switched off, turned off. Okay, these points you have to remember. Now the fourth component, that is slot. What do you mean by slot? Slot means a small opening. Okay, an opening where you can insert a PCB, where you can insert a PCB. Okay, what is PCB? Printed circuit board. You already know that. Okay, means on the motherboard there are many slots where you can insert the PCB. PCB is the chip. Okay, you know this word. This is familiar to you. Chip, isn't it? RAM chip is there. Okay, many chips are there. They have to be inserted on the motherboard. Where they have to be inserted, there should be a small opening, isn't it? That opening is called as slot. Okay, now there are many types of slots. Some of the important slots we are discussing here. Okay, first one, ISA. This is the first slot. Industry Standard Architecture, it stands for. Okay, all the full forms are very important in this chapter. Please remember, ISA stands for Industry Standard Architecture. Now why is this used? This is used to connect the modem, external modem, to the processor. Okay, means the external modem is there. There will be a cable, you go in and connect it to the processor, isn't it? To the CPU. Now that slot where you connect the external modem is called as ISA slot, Industry Standard Architecture. Okay, just you need to know the full form and its working for all the slots. Fine. See, there are very details of these given in the textbook. There you can go and refer. Okay, just the highlights I am summarizing here. Coming to the second slot, it is PCI, Peripheral Component Interface. Please remember, Peripheral Component Interface. Now this is mainly used to connect the graphics card. GC stands for graphics card, sound card, and internal modem. See, external modem is connected using ISA, Industrial Standard Architecture. But if the modem is internally inbuilt, then it will be connected to this slot, that is PCI, Peripheral Component Interconnect. Okay, you please do not write the short forms. Okay, you have tried the full forms while writing in the exam and in the notes. Understanding? So this is used to connect the graphics card, sound card. Okay, means if the speaker has to work, the sound card has to be inserted in PCI. Understanding? Fine. Now coming to the third slot, that is AGP, Accelerated Graphics Port. Accelerated Graphics Port, as the name itself indicates, it is mainly used for video card. Where do you use the graphics? In the video, right? Graphics are mainly used in the videos. Nowadays the Hollywood movies are coming, and mainly they will be in the 3D mode, isn't it? So for 3D acceleration and for using the videos in graphics mode, you are using this port called as AGP. Means the graphics card has to be inserted in this advanced graphics port. See, all your laptops have the graphics card, isn't it? 1 GB graphics card you say, 2 GB graphics card you say. So that card will be inserted in this slot. This is the meaning. Are you understanding? This is just the opening. Slot means the opening. There you are inserting your cards. What all cards you are inserting, that we are listing here. Okay, I hope this is clear. Then coming to the fourth one, that is RAM slot. What has to be inserted here? RAM has to be inserted. Just that is it. Okay, RAM means what? Random access memory, isn't it? The memory, the volatile memory, which has got high storage capacity. Okay, but it has to be saved. Otherwise, when the computer turns off, the memory will be erased. That is RAM, isn't it? It is a volatile memory, we say. Okay, not the permanent memory. So RAM has to be inserted on the motherboard in this RAM slot. Okay. Now two types of RAM can be inserted. Just you need to remember. One is SIMM and DIMM. You just need to remember the full forms of this. Single inline memory module, double inline memory module. Okay. Your RAM will be of, nowadays you are using RAM of 4 GB, 6 GB, 8 GB. Okay. So that RAM card has to be inserted in this RAM slot. And the biggest slot is processor slot. Why it is biggest? Because the processor itself is the biggest component of the motherboard. Okay. So this processor, where it is inserted is the processor slot. Okay. Means on the motherboard, there will be an opening for inserting the processor. That opening we call it as processor slot. So this is all about the slots. Industry standard architecture, first one. Peripheral component interconnect, accelerated graphics port, RAM slot, processor slot. So these are all about the 4 components of the motherboard. Let us go to the next one. And now the 5th component. Okay, 4 components we have already seen till slots. The 5th component is disk controller. Okay, disk controller means it connects the processor to the device, disk devices. Okay, disk hardwares like 2 are there, hard disk drive and floppy disk drive. Okay, hard disk, if it is connected to the hard disk, that disk controller is hard disk controller, okay, hard disk driver, or FTD, floppy disk drive. Okay, so that is mainly connected to what? To connect the secondary storage device to the computer, isn't it? The hard disk or CD or floppy, everything is what? It is connecting the secondary storage device, correct? So when your RAM or ROM is filled with the storage, then you need to, or for the backup also, you need a secondary storage device. For that you use hard disk, floppy disk are not used nowadays, but still hard disk, CD, DVD, etc. Now that has to be connected to this disk controller. Okay, disk controller has to be there in the motherboard. Then only when the hard disk or floppy disk is connected, your processor starts working. Okay, your processor starts communicating with those disks. Okay, means the storage or the transfer of data can happen only if the disk controller is present in the motherboard. Okay, that is the meaning. And coming to the I/O ports, this is also very important part of the component of the motherboard. Okay, input output ports. Many ports are there. Now there is high chance of getting confused between slot and port. Okay, please understand the difference. Slot means on the motherboard itself, okay, the openings are there. There you connect the devices. These are slots. Ports means only the device can be connected through the cable to the processor. Only the cable can be connected, not the whole chip cannot be connected. Only the cable of that device can be connected. The modem, external modem is there. You are connecting it through a cable to the processor. Now that cable, where it has to be inserted? That cable has to be inserted in certain port. Okay, slot means the whole chip will be inserted. It is inbuilt. Port means only the cable will be inserted. The device will be external. Okay, this is the meaning of port and slot. I hope this is clear. Now there are many ports, as many as 9 to 10 ports. Each port has got its own function. You need to remember them. Okay, the first one is serial port. Serial port means what? Why the name serial comes? Serial comes because at a time, in 1 second, only one bit will be passed serially. One bit, then next bit, then next bit. So serially, if only one bit is passing at a time, that is serial port. Okay, and the cable which you use here is RS-232 cable. RS-232 cable has to be used to connect the devices, external devices, to this serial port. Okay, what all devices can be connected? Mouse can be connected and modem can be connected. Okay, just the highlights I have written. You need to make certain 3 or 4 points out of it and write in the notes clearly. I hope this is clear. Why the serial port? Because the transfer of data takes place at one bit at a time. Okay, fine. Now similarly, the opposite of this is parallel port. Parallel port means many bits are being sent at a time. How many bits? See, you say it as byte wise. How many bits make a byte? 8 bits, isn't it? So 8 bits of data can be sent at a time in parallel port. So this is faster, isn't it? This is faster. And printers and scanners can be connected to the parallel port. Remember this. Fine. Now, the most familiar port is USB port. What do you mean by USB? Everyone knows this. What is USB? You have heard the word USB, but not the full form, isn't it? Universal Serial Bus, it stands for. Okay. So, USB port, what is the advantage of USB port? You just need to connect it. That's it. You need not have any adapter in the device. Nothing is needed. It is just like PNP. What is PNP? Plug and play. PNP stands for plug and play. Means as soon as you plug an USB device, it starts playing. You need not have any device driver or some adapter or something in your computer. Nothing is needed. Just you insert the USB and it starts playing. So it is called as PNP device. Plug and play. Okay. And what is the advantage? 12 Mbps. At such a speed, the data can be transferred between the USB device and the processor. 12 Mbps, 12 megabits per second. Okay. As many as 127 different types of devices can be connected through USB. Nowadays, mouse is connected through USB, keyboard is connected through USB, and your cards are there. Your camera can be connected through USB. So many devices, as many as 127 devices can be connected through USB. That is the main advantage of USB port. And please remember this word. It is very useful. PNP, plug and play. Means as soon as you plug the device without any adapter or any disk driver, the device starts playing. That is the mean. Okay. And the next is PS2 port, personal system. Personal system, PS stands for. It is mainly used for pointing devices. Pointing device means touchpads are there. The laptops are using the touchpads nowadays. Or when you go to ATMs and all, the touchpads will be there. Okay. For that, PS2 port has to be inserted. That touchpad has to be connected through USB, this PS2 port. That is the meaning. Okay. And IDE port. IDE port stands for Integrated Digital Electronics. Okay. This is mainly used to connect the CD-ROM or hard disk drive to the computer, to the motherboard. Okay. Means to this port, IDE port, you are connecting CD-ROM or means CDs, DVDs, HDDs, that is hard disk drives. These all can be connected to which port? IDE port. Okay. And AGP, this already you have seen. See, AGP slot was there. Means you were inserting the graphic card in chip. If you want to use an external graphics card, okay. So if you want to use an external graphics card, that has to be connected to AGP port. AGP slot is different, AGP port is different. If the inbuilt graphics card is there, that is inserted in AGP slot. If the external graphics card has to be connected to the computer, that has to be connected using AGP port. This is the meaning. Okay. And VGA, Visual Graphics Adapter. Visual Graphics Adapter. Visual stands for what? Video card. Isn't it? If you want to connect any video card externally, you have to connect it to VGA port. Understanding? And the 8th one, modem. Okay. Modem has got a port, isn't it? There is a different kind of port, a different dimension is there only to connect the modem. Any other device cannot be connected to that port, that opening, isn't it? So that is modem port. What do you mean by modem? Yes, what is the full form of modem? You study it in detail in the 15th chapter, but this time the 15th chapter itself is removed. So please remember here itself, modem stands for modulation and demodulation. Okay, modulation and demodulation. Many techniques are there. In detail, it is seen in the 15th chapter. Anyhow, The modem port is used to connect your external modem device to the computer. That much you need to understand here. The ninth one is Ethernet. Ethernet port means Ethernet card. Why the Ethernet card is used? Mainly for high speed internet, isn't it? Ethernet mainly is used for high speed internet, your dongles, etc. Now that has to be connected in Ethernet port. Externally, the high speed internet devices have to be connected to Ethernet port. And the last port is MIDI. Okay, this is 8th, I think. This is 9th. And this is 10th. Correct? So, the last port is MIDI, Musical Instrument Digital Interface. Please remember the full form. Musical Instrument Digital Interface means when you go to the studios, the recording studios and all, your computer will be or your processor will be connected to many musical instrument interfaces, isn't it? Now those all musical instrument interfaces have to be connected to a port called as MIDI port. Musical interface, musical instrument, digital interface. This is the MIDI. I hope all the ports are clear. Now how many components of the motherboard we have seen? 6 components we have seen. Okay, processor, BIOS, CMOS, correct, slots, and the disk controllers and the IO ports. Okay, so these are the components of the motherboard. Now, having learned about all the components, okay, on your motherboard many devices are there now, many components are there. How can they be interconnected? That is the 7th component. The interconnection of all these components is done using the cables, the wires called as bus. Okay. Now what about the details of those bus and the memory and the other things we are going to listen in the next video. Okay. I hope in this video the structure of the motherboard and the components of the motherboard are clear to you. Okay. Thank you very much.